Do you know what it's like to hide in a bathroom stall, crying so hard you have to turn on all the faucets just so no one hears you falling apart? Do you know what it's like to watch the person you love kiss someone else for the entertainment of your coworkers? To spend 2 years being enough for midnight, but never enough for 2 p.m.? My name is Leo, and this is the story of how I loved a man who was ashamed of me. Welcome to BL Stories by K. Before we dive into today's story, if you're new here or you love emotional BL content that will make you cry, laugh, and believe in love again, please hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more stories like this one. Chapter 1. The fluorescent lights of the office always felt too bright, too exposing. But somehow I was still invisible. I watched Mark from across the open-plan workspace, my fingers frozen over my keyboard. He was leaning against Jessica's cubicle, one arm draped casually over the partition, laughing at something she said. His laugh, the one I used to think was reserved for me, echoed across the room, loud and careless. My heart constricted. That was my boyfriend, the man who'd whispered "I love you" into my neck just 12 hours ago. The man who knew every scar on my body, every fear in my mind. The man who'd traced the birthmark on my hip and called it his favorite constellation. Then his eyes found mine. For a fraction of a second, I saw something flicker. Recognition, maybe? Guilt? But it vanished so quickly I wondered if I'd imagined it. His expression turned to stone, cold, hard, a silent command that screamed louder than any words. "Don't you dare acknowledge me." I looked away first. I always did. Jessica giggled at something Mark said, her hand touching his arm. The casual intimacy of it, the ease with which she could touch him in broad daylight made my chest ache. I'd stopped reaching for him months ago, trained by too many rejected gestures, too many moments where my hand would move toward his and he'd step away like I'd burned him. "Leo," my desk neighbor Amanda waved a hand in front of my face. "Did you hear me? I asked if you're coming to the team lunch." "Oh, yeah, sure." The words tasted like ash. She leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Between you and me, I think Mark and Jessica are totally going to get together. Did you see them at the happy hour last week? So much chemistry." I forced my face into something resembling a smile. "Yeah, they'd make a great couple." The lie burned my throat on the way out. The weight of the silence pressed against my chest like a physical thing. I was a ghost haunting my own life, visible only when the sun went down. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. "Stop staring. People will notice." I turned my phone face down and went back to my spreadsheet, the numbers blurring together. "Hey everyone," our manager David clapped his hands together. "Team lunch in 10. There's a new Thai place down the street. Mark, you're in charge of the reservation since you're so good with people." Mark grinned, that charming smile he wore like armor. "No problem, boss. I'll make sure we get the best table." He walked past my desk without a glance, his cologne, Dior Sauvage, the one I'd saved up 3 paychecks to buy him, trailing behind him like a ghost. My stomach dropped. Team lunches were a special kind of torture. We gathered around a large table, the conversation flowing easily around me like water around a stone. I sat 3 seats away from Mark, close enough to smell his cologne, the one I'd bought him for his birthday, far enough that no one would suspect. Mark had positioned himself between Jessica and Rachel, the 2 newest hires. He was in his element, telling stories, making everyone laugh. This was the Mark the office knew, confident, straight, aggressively heterosexual. Not the Mark who cried in my arms 2 nights ago about his father's expectations. Not the Mark who whispered poetry against my skin at 2 a.m. Not the Mark who told me he'd never felt safer than when he was wrapped around me in the dark. "So Mark," Jessica said, twirling her pad thai, her eyes bright with interest. "What do you think about the Pride Parade next month? The company's sponsoring a float. Are you going?" The table went quiet. I stopped breathing. My fork hovered over my plate. I knew what was coming. I always did. Mark took a long sip of his beer, his jaw tight for just a second before smoothing into casual indifference. When he finally spoke, his voice was measured, almost bored. "Honestly, I find the whole gay lifestyle confusing. Like, I support people's rights and whatever, but I don't really get it." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt my face go numb. "What do you mean?" Jessica pressed, genuinely curious. Mark shrugged, stabbing at his green curry. "I just mean, why do they have to make it such a big deal? Like, we get it, you're gay. Why does there need to be a whole parade about it? It's just, I don't know, attention-seeking?" Several people around the table nodded in agreement. "Right?" Todd from accounting jumped in. "Like, I don't go around announcing I'm straight. Why do they need to shove it in everyone's faces?" Laughter rippled around the table. Easy, comfortable laughter. The kind that comes when everyone agrees on something. My throat was closing. I tried to take a sip of water, but my hand was shaking. "I think it's brave," someone said quietly. I looked up. It was Sarah from HR, her expression thoughtful. "I mean, imagine having to hide who you are every single day. That must be exhausting." Mark's eyes flickered to me for a millisecond before looking away. "I guess so, but still, there's a difference between being yourself and making it your whole personality, you know? Like, I work with this guy at my gym, and all he talks about is being gay. It's like, dude, we get it. Talk about literally anything else." The table laughed again. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to melt into the floor, to evaporate like water on hot pavement.
"Leo, you're quiet," David said, turning to me. "What do you think?" Every eye turned to me. Mark's face was carefully neutral, but his hand had tightened around his beer bottle. My voice came out rough. I cleared my throat. "I think everyone deserves to be themselves without fear." "Oh, totally," Jessica agreed quickly. "I'm all for gay rights. I just think Mark has a point about the parade thing being a bit much." "Exactly," Mark jumped in smoothly. "It's about optics. You can support something without, making a spectacle of it." The conversation shifted to the new project deadline, but I couldn't hear it anymore. There was a ringing in my ears, a pressure building behind my eyes. Mark laughed at something Todd said, his hand casually resting on the back of Jessica's chair. That hand had been in my hair this morning. Those fingers had traced patterns on my back while I made us coffee. That mouth had kissed me goodbye at my door before we drove separately to work, maintaining the charade. "I need some air," I mumbled, pushing back from the table. "You okay, buddy?" Mark asked, his voice full of false concern. "You look pale." "Buddy." The word was a knife between my ribs. "Fine, just headache." I stood up too quickly, my chair scraping loudly. I grabbed my wallet and practically ran to the bathroom, ignoring the curious glances. In the harsh fluorescent light of the restaurant's bathroom, I gripped the sink and stared at my reflection. My face was flushed, my eyes too bright. I looked like I was about to cry or scream or both. My phone buzzed. "Mark, don't be dramatic. I'll explain later." Then another. "You're being too sensitive. It was just conversation." And another. "You're going to blow our cover if you keep acting weird." I turned off my phone and splashed cold water on my face. When I returned to the table, Mark was showing everyone photos from his weekend hiking trip, a trip he'd told me he was spending at his parents' house. In the photos, he was grinning, surrounded by people I'd never met. A girl with red hair had her arm around his waist. "Who's that?" Jessica asked, pointing at the redhead. "Oh, that's Emma, friend of a friend. She's actually pretty cool. We've been texting." The food in my stomach turned to lead. When lunch finally ended, we walked back to the office in a group. Mark fell into step beside me for just a moment. "You did good," he whispered, so quiet only I could hear. "See you tonight?" I didn't answer. Back at my desk, I couldn't focus. The words from lunch played on a loop in my head. Why do they have to make it such a big deal? Attention-seeking, making it your whole personality. Was that what Mark really thought, or was it just performance? At 3 p.m., I got an email from Mark. The subject line, "Anderson Report, Urgent." I opened it. "Baby, I'm sorry about lunch. You know I don't mean those things. I have to say them. Please understand. I love you. Tonight, I'll make it up to you. I'll show you how much you mean to me. Don't be mad. M." I stared at the email for a long time. Then I archived it without responding. At 5:30, as everyone was packing up, Mark stopped by my desk. "Hey, Leo, can you stay late? I need help with the quarterly report." It was code. Everyone knew Mark never asked for help. "I have plans," I lied. His jaw tightened. "Cancel them." "I can't." "Leo." "I said I can't, Mark." I met his eyes, and for once I didn't look away first. "I'm tired." Something flashed across his face. Anger, maybe, or fear. But before he could respond, Jessica appeared. "Hey, Mark, a few of us are grabbing drinks. You coming?" He turned to her, his expression transforming instantly into that charming smile. "Absolutely. Let me grab my jacket." He walked away without another glance at me. I sat at my desk until the office emptied, the silence pressing down on me like a weight. In the harsh mirror light of my computer screen's reflection, I saw a stranger staring back at me. Hollow eyes, fake smile still plastered on his face like a mask he couldn't remove. Who was I becoming, and why was I letting him turn me into this? My phone buzzed. "Mark, don't be childish. I'm coming over at midnight. We need to talk." I turned off my phone and finally allowed myself to cry right there at my desk in the empty office where no one could see me disappear. Chapter 2. I made it to the third stall before the first sob broke free. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely lock the door. I fumbled with the latch twice before it clicked into place, sealing me in this tiny box of white tile and industrial toilet paper. My hand shot out, turning on every faucet in the bathroom, sink, the one near the urinals, all of them. The rushing water created a wall of sound, a barrier between my breaking and the world outside. I'd learned this trick 6 months ago. 6 months of crying in this exact stall, 6 months of drowning out my pain with running water. I collapsed against the cold tile wall, sliding down until I was crouched on the floor, my professional button-down wrinkling, my tie choking me. I yanked it loose with shaking hands, the silk sliding through my fingers like water, like time, like every promise Mark had ever made me. The sobs came in waves, each one dragging me under. 2 years, 2 years of loving someone in the dark, 2 years of "I'll text you when I get home" instead of "let's grab dinner together." 2 years of watching him flirt with women, watching him perform heterosexuality like it was an Olympic sport and he was going for gold. 2 years of being enough for midnight, but not for 2 p.m. Why do they have to make it such a big deal? His words from lunch echoed in my skull, mixing with the sound of running water. I pressed my palms against my temples, trying to make it stop, but the memories kept coming. 3 months ago, at the company Christmas party, Mark had danced with every woman in the office. When it was my turn to request a song, he'd laughed and said, "Sorry man, I'm beat, maybe next time." Then he'd turned around and asked Rachel to dance to the very next song. 6 weeks ago, when my mother called to ask if I was bringing someone to my sister's wedding, Mark had been lying in my bed, his head on my chest. "Tell her you're still looking," he'd said. "Tell her you're focusing on your career right now." When I'd hung up, he'd kissed me and said, "It's better this way, less complicated." Last month, when I'd gotten promoted and wanted to celebrate, Mark had said he couldn't be seen going to dinner with just me. It would look weird, he'd explained. Two guys at a nice restaurant, people would talk. Instead, he'd shown up at my apartment at 11 p.m. with cheap takeout and expensive apologies. I looked at my reflection in the stall door's polished metal, distorted and warped. Was this what I'd become? A man who hid in bathroom stalls, who turned on faucets to drown out the sound of his own heartbreak? A man who measured his worth in midnight visits and dark-room confessions? My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with trembling hands. Mark, stop being weird. Everyone's asking why you left. Mark, seriously, you're making this a bigger deal than it is. Mark, I said I'll explain tonight. Can you just trust me for once? Trust him? Trust the man who just spent an hour explaining to our coworkers why pride parades were too much. Trust the man who'd looked me in the eye this morning and said, "I love you," before spending his lunch break explaining why he found the gay lifestyle confusing. I typed out a response. Do you even hear yourself? Do you know what it's like to sit there and listen to the person you love tear apart your entire existence? I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. Instead, I sent, "Headache, going home early." His response was immediate. "Fine, I'll come over after work. We need to talk about your attitude." My attitude? As if I was the problem. As if wanting to be acknowledged in daylight was some kind of character flaw. I thought about the Leo from 2 years ago, the one who'd fallen in love with Mark's laugh, with the way he'd held my hand under the table at that first coffee shop meeting, with the promises he'd made about taking things slow and finding the right time. That Leo had been hopeful, naive maybe, but hopeful. This Leo, the one crouched on a bathroom floor at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, crying so hard he couldn't breathe, this Leo was something else entirely. The weight of the silence, not just Mark's silence, but my own, was crushing. I was complicit in my own erasure. Every time I looked away when our eyes met, every time I laughed at his jokes like I was just another coworker, every time I accepted the crumbs he threw me after dark, I was choosing this. I was choosing to be a ghost. Another text. By the way, can you delete any texts between us from today? I'm letting Jessica borrow my phone charger and I don't want her to see anything weird if she looks. Something inside me cracked. Delete the evidence, hide the proof, erase myself a little more. I thought about all the photos on my phone, hundreds of selfies Mark and I had taken together. Not a single one had ever made it to social media. Not a single one existed anywhere except my camera roll, hidden in a locked folder he'd made me create just to be safe. I thought about the drawer in my apartment, the one filled with things Mark had left behind over 2 years, his favorite hoodie, a toothbrush, a half-empty bottle of his cologne, books he'd been reading, all of it hidden away because he couldn't risk anyone seeing evidence that he spent time at my place. I thought about the emergency exit plan he'd made me memorize, what to say if someone from work ever saw us together outside the office. We're working on a project, we're training for a 5K, we're looking at apartments in the same neighborhood. Never the truth, never, "This is my boyfriend." The bathroom door opened. I froze, holding my breath. Footsteps approached. Someone entered the stall next to mine. I stayed perfectly still, tears streaming silently down my face, my hand over my mouth to muffle any sound. Even my breakdown had to be considerate of others. Even my pain had to be quiet and hidden and convenient. The person left. I was alone again. I pulled myself up, my legs shaky, and looked in the mirror above the sink. My eyes were red and swollen. My face was blotchy. There was no way I could go back to my desk like this.
I splashed cold water on my face, trying to erase the evidence of my tears, the way Mark wanted me to erase our texts. The water was cold enough to hurt, sharp against my fevered skin. My reflection stared back at me, a ghost of a man who'd forgotten what it felt like to exist in sunlight. The worst part, I knew I'd go back to my desk eventually. I'd finish my reports, I'd smile when Mark made his rounds, and tonight, when he showed up at my apartment with that apologetic smile and gentle touches, I'd probably let him in. Because a part of me, the desperate, lonely part that I hated, still believed that hidden love was better than no love at all. I was wrong. I just didn't know it yet. I dried my face with rough paper towels, straightened my tie, and turned off the faucets one by one. The silence that remained was deafening. Before I left the bathroom, I caught my reflection one more time. I barely recognized myself. "You deserve better than this," I whispered to the stranger in the mirror. He didn't believe me. I didn't go back to my desk. Instead, I took the back stairwell down to the parking garage, my footsteps echoing in the concrete space. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, forehead pressed against the steering wheel, trying to remember the last time Mark had made me feel like I was worth the risk. I couldn't. My phone buzzed again. "Mark, where are you? David is looking for you." Mark, "Seriously, you're being unprofessional." Mark, "Fine, whatever. I'll see you tonight, and we're going to have a serious conversation about your mood swings." Mood swings. As if heartbreak was just hormones. As if erasure was just a bad day. I drove home in silence, my mind replaying every moment of lunch, every word, every laugh that had come at the expense of people like me, people like us. Except there was no us in the daylight. In the daylight, there was Mark, and then there was the ghost he kept in his closet. I thought about calling in sick for the rest of the week. I thought about quitting. I thought about showing up at his desk and forcing him to acknowledge me in front of everyone. But I knew I wouldn't do any of those things. Because despite everything, despite the pain and the hiding and the bathroom stall breakdowns, I still loved him. And that was the most pathetic part of all. Chapter 3. The knock came at 11:47 p.m. It was always around midnight. I sat on my couch in the dark, staring at the door. I'd been sitting there for over an hour, my phone face down on the coffee table, my apartment silent except for the sound of my own breathing. I knew I should leave the door closed. I knew I should have some dignity, some self-respect. I'd told myself that for the past 3 hours. But my hand was already on the knob, already pulling it open. Mark stood in the hallway, his tie loosened, his hair slightly messed up in that way that used to make my heart race. He looked tired, with shadows under his eyes that I knew came from the 3 beers he'd had with the team after I'd left. I could smell the alcohol on him, mixed with his cologne, my cologne, the one I'd bought him. He looked at me with those dark eyes, the ones that turned soft only in the darkness of my apartment, only when there were no witnesses to his tenderness. "Leo," he breathed my name like a prayer, like an apology, like a promise he'd broken 1,000 times before. He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, his hands immediately finding my waist, pulling me close. His lips found mine, desperate and familiar, trying to kiss away the afternoon's cruelty. His touch was warm now, gentle now, loving now that there were no colleagues to see, no reputation to maintain. I let him kiss me. I let him walk me backward toward the couch. I let him whisper, "I missed you," against my collarbone, even though we'd sat in the same meeting just 6 hours ago, even though he'd looked right through me when Todd had made a joke about his love life. His hands moved to my shirt buttons, and something in me snapped. I caught his wrist. "Stop!" Mark pulled back, his expression shifting from tender to confused. "What's wrong?" "What's wrong?" I repeated, my voice hollow. "What's wrong?" "Baby, don't be like this." Don't call me that. Not right now. I stepped away from him, putting the coffee table between us. Why can't you hold my hand at 2 p.m.? The question hung in the air between us, heavy and sharp. Mark's jaw tightened. Leo, come on, we've talked about this. No, you've talked. I've listened. There's a difference. He ran his hair through his head, that gesture he made when he was stressed, when he was about to make excuses. You know my situation, my family, my career. I'm up for partner next year. If they knew I was, he couldn't even say the word, it would ruin everything I've worked for. And what about what I've worked for? My voice cracked, 2 years of suppressed pain bleeding through. What about my life? Do you know what it's like to hear the person you love call your entire existence confusing over lunch? I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it, Mark? Explain it to me. Explain how you don't understand the gay lifestyle when you're sleeping with a man, when you've been sleeping with a man for 2 years. His face flushed. That's different. What we have is different. How? How is it different? Because I love you. He took a step toward me, his voice rising. What we have is real. It's not about parades and rainbow flags and making a spectacle. It's private. It's ours. No, Mark, it's yours. This whole thing has only ever been on your terms, your timeline, your rules, your comfort zone. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Do you know what it's like to hide in a bathroom stall crying so hard you have to turn on all the faucets just so no one hears you falling apart? For a moment, something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe even shame. His voice softened. I know today was hard. I know I said things that hurt you, but you have to understand, I'm playing a role at work. That's not the real me. The real me is here with you, like this. He moved around the coffee table, reaching for me again. Is it? I didn't move away this time. Because from where I'm standing, the Mark at work seems pretty real too. The Mark who laughs at homophobic jokes, the Mark who flirts with Jessica, the Mark who asked Emma for her number last week. Yes, I heard about that. Multiple people told me about it, actually, like it was some big exciting news. Mark's face paled. That was nothing. She's just a friend. You have her picture as your phone wallpaper. Because people look at my phone. I can't have you on there, Leo. What if someone saw? God forbid, I whispered. God forbid someone know you're capable of loving another man. Mark's expression hardened. You're being dramatic. You're turning this into something it's not. Am I? Because it feels pretty clear to me. You want a boyfriend you can hide away like a shameful secret, someone who will wait patiently in the dark while you live your real life in the sun. That's not fair. Fair? My voice rose despite my best efforts. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I have to delete our text conversations? That I have to pretend we're just coworkers when my friends ask why I'm always alone? That I had to lie to my sister about why I'm not bringing anyone to her wedding? I told you we can say you're focusing on your career. I don't want to lie anymore. The words burst out of me. I'm tired of lying. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of being your dirty little secret. Mark's face went red. You're being selfish. The word hit me like a slap. Selfish? Yes, selfish. His voice was cold now, defensive. I have responsibilities. I have a family that would disown me, a career that would be over. You think it's easy for me? You think I like having to hide? Then stop hiding. Come out. Be honest about who you are. It's not that simple, and you know it. Mark's hands clenched into fists at his sides. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. My father just made me executor of his estate. My mother calls every week asking when I'm going to settle down with a nice girl. My boss keeps trying to set me up with his daughter. Do you know what would happen if I just announced I was gay?
Yes, I said quietly. You'd be free. I'd be ruined. So you'd rather ruin me instead? Mark's expression twisted into something ugly. No one's ruining you. You're choosing to be here. You're choosing to be with me. I never forced you into anything. The words were technically true, which made them hurt even more. You're right, I said slowly. I am choosing this. I've been choosing this for 2 years. I've been choosing to shrink myself down into something small enough to fit in the dark corners of your life. I've been choosing to accept midnight kisses as a substitute for daylight respect. Mark's face softened slightly. Baby. But I'm realizing something, I continued, my voice stronger now. Choosing you means unchoosing myself, and I don't know how much more of me I have left to give up. He stepped closer, cupping my face in his hands. His touch was gentle, his thumb brushing away a tear I didn't realize had fallen. This was the Mark I'd fallen in love with, soft and vulnerable and seemingly sincere. I love you, Leo. Doesn't that matter? When we're here, like this, doesn't this feel real? Isn't this worth the wait? And there it was, the question that had kept me trapped for 2 years. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to melt into his touch, to accept the midnight apologies and dark room promises. I wanted to believe that love whispered in secret was still love, that invisible love could sustain me. But a small voice in the back of my mind, one that was getting harder to ignore, whispered something different. A man who loves you in the dark but denies you in the light doesn't love you. He's just using you to hide from himself. What about what I need? I asked quietly. What do you need? I need to be able to hold your hand in public. I need to be able to post a photo of us together. I need to be able to say, my boyfriend, when people ask about my weekend. I need to exist in your life in the daylight, not just the dark. Mark's hands dropped from my face. You know I can't give you that, not right now. When then? When will it be the right time? I don't know. After the promotion, after my father, after things settle down with my family. I just need time. You've had 2 years, and I need more. His voice rose in frustration. Why are you being so difficult about this? Why can't you just be patient? Why can't you trust that I know what's best for us? Because it's not what's best for us, Mark. It's what's best for you, and I'm starting to realize that's all this has ever been about. He stared at me for a long moment, his expression cycling through anger, hurt, and finally a kind of cold calculation. You know what? I came here to apologize. I came here to make things right, but you're being impossible. You're sabotaging us because you want to play the victim. I'm not playing anything, I said, exhausted. I'm just finally seeing things clearly. You know I can't lose my reputation, Leo. Don't be selfish. Don't ask me to sacrifice everything I've worked for just because you're feeling insecure. Selfish. There was that word again. Wanting to be acknowledged was selfish. Wanting to be loved openly was selfish. Wanting to exist was selfish. Mark moved toward me again, his hands finding my waist, pulling me close despite my resistance. He kissed me, hard and claiming, trying to erase the conversation with physical intimacy, the way he always did. And I let him because I didn't know how to do anything else, because 2 years of conditioning had taught me that this was love, stolen moments and secret touches and apologies delivered in the dark. His lips moved to my neck, his hands sliding under my shirt. He whispered against my skin, "See, this is real. This is us. Don't let your insecurities ruin what we have." My insecurities, my dramatics, my selfishness, my impatience. Never his cowardice, never his shame, never his cruel words at lunch, or his performance of heterosexuality, or his phone wallpaper of another woman. I pulled away. I think you should go. Mark's expression darkened. Seriously? You're kicking me out? I'm tired, Mark. I'm tired. Of me? Of us? Of waiting.
I'm tired of waiting for you to love me enough, waiting for the right time that never comes, waiting for you to be brave. You want to talk about brave? You want to know what's brave? Brave is maintaining your career while dealing with a needy boyfriend who doesn't understand real-world consequences. Brave is managing family expectations and professional responsibilities while trying to make time for someone who only knows how to complain. The words landed like punches, each one calculated to hurt. "Get out," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Leo, get out." He stared at me for a long moment, his expression a mixture of anger and disbelief. Then he grabbed his jacket from the couch and stormed toward the door. He paused with his hand on the doorknob, turning back one more time. "You're going to regret this. You think you can do better than me? You think anyone else is going to want someone as needy and dramatic as you? Good luck with that." The door slammed behind me, the sound echoing through my apartment. I stood there in the silence, my hands shaking, my heart racing, feeling like I'd just jumped off a cliff without knowing if there was water below. But something inside me, something small but vital, had cracked open, and for the first time in 2 years, I thought I might have done something right. I didn't cry. I just sat down on my couch and breathed, really breathed, feeling the weight of his absence and wondering why it felt more like relief than loss.
My phone buzzed. One last message from Mark. "Fine, but don't come crying to me when you realize what a mistake you made. I won't wait forever." I turned off my phone and sat in the quiet of my apartment, in the darkness that used to feel like intimacy, but now just felt like freedom. Tomorrow, I'd go back to the office. Tomorrow, I'd have to face him across the open workspace. Tomorrow, I'd have to figure out how to exist in the same space as someone who'd spent 2 years teaching me I wasn't worth the light. But tonight, for the first time in 2 years, I was choosing myself, and that had to count for something. Chapter 4. Monday morning brought rain and a new face. "Everyone, this is Kai Chen, joining us from the Singapore office," David announced during the morning huddle. "Kai will be working on the Anderson account. Make him feel welcome." I glanced up from my laptop. Kai was tall, with kind eyes and an easy smile that didn't look practiced. He wore his company badge on a lanyard and had a small rainbow pin next to it. Subtle, but there. My heart did a strange little flip. That pin, that tiny brave declaration. The morning dragged on. I kept my head down, finishing reports that didn't matter, attending meetings where I stayed silent. At one point, I felt eyes on me and looked up to see Mark watching from across the room, his expression unreadable. I looked away first. Always. Around 3 p.m., I noticed something on my desk that hadn't been there before. A chocolate bar, the expensive kind from the gourmet shop downtown, and a sticky note. "I saw you in the hall earlier. You looked like you could use a friend. New here and could use one too. Kai." I stared at the note for a long moment, something warm and unfamiliar blooming in my chest. Someone had seen me, not looked through me, not pretended I didn't exist, actually seen me. I turned in my chair. Kai was 2 rows over, focused on his computer. As if sensing my gaze, he looked up and gave me a small, genuine smile. No performance, no calculation, just kindness. I smiled back, and it felt like the first real thing I'd done in months. From across the room, I heard a chair scrape. Mark had stood up abruptly, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on the interaction. He grabbed his coffee mug and walked toward the break room, his stride tense. I unwrapped the chocolate bar. It tasted like hope. Chapter 5. Happy hour at Murphy's Bar was a mandatory monthly ritual disguised as team bonding. I nursed my beer in the corner while everyone laughed and played pool. Mark was at the center of the action, as always, his arm around Jessica's shoulders as he told some story that had everyone roaring with laughter. Kai appeared beside me, holding 2 fresh beers. I think you needed another one." "Thanks," I said, accepting the bottle. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." He leaned against the wall next to me, his shoulder almost touching mine. "Can I ask you something?" My stomach tightened. "Sure." "That guy, Mark, the one who keeps glaring at us like I kicked his dog, what's his deal?" I took a long drink. "It's complicated." Complicated like we have history, or complicated like he's an asshole? Despite everything, I laughed. It felt foreign, like using muscles I'd forgotten I had. Maybe both. Before Kai could respond, Jessica's voice rang out. "Truth or dare time, come on everyone, gather round." My blood went cold. I started to make an excuse to leave, but Kai's hand on my arm stopped me. "Stay," he said quietly. "You don't have to keep running." So I stayed, and I watched as the game progressed, each dare getting progressively more ridiculous and alcohol-fueled. Then it was Mark's turn. "Mark," Jessica giggled, already tipsy. "Truth or dare?" "Dare." His voice was confident, cocky. "I dare you to kiss the prettiest girl in the room." The office erupted in cheers and applause. Mark didn't hesitate. He pulled Jessica close and kissed her, theatrical and showy, while everyone hooped and applauded. I watched the man I loved kiss someone else for the entertainment of our coworkers. I watched him perform his straightness like it was a shield, like every second of that kiss was another nail in my coffin. When they finally broke apart, Mark's eyes found mine. There was something there, maybe guilt, or challenge, or maybe nothing at all. I set down my beer and walked out. The rain hit me the moment I stepped outside, cold and relentless. I didn't care. I walked down the street, my shirt soaking through, my carefully styled hair plastered to my forehead. 2 years. 2 years of waiting for a man who was ashamed of me. 2 years of accepting less than I deserved because I was terrified of being alone. But standing in that rain, watching the neon signs blur through my tears, I realized something. I was already alone. I had been alone all along. Mark had never been mine in any way that mattered. Chapter 6. "Leo, Leo, wait!" I turned to see Kai jogging through the rain, his jacket pulled over his head. "Go back inside," I said, my voice hollow. "The party's not over." "Screw the party." He stopped in front of me, rain dripping down his face. "You're soaked. Come on, there's a cafe around the corner." I should have said no. I should have gone home, crawled into bed and prepared for Mark's midnight apology. But I was so tired of should. "Okay," I whispered. The cafe was warm and bright, with exposed brick walls and soft jazz playing from vintage speakers. Kai ordered us both hot chocolate without asking, and I didn't protest. We sat by the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. "How long?" Kai asked quietly. "How long what?" "How long have you been in love with someone who treats you like a secret?" I almost denied it. Almost. But what was the point? 2 years. Kai let out a low whistle. "That's a long time to be invisible." "I'm not," I started, then stopped. "Because I was. I absolutely was." "Leo," Kai's voice was gentle but firm, "a man who loves you in the dark but denies you in the light doesn't love you. He's just using you to hide from himself." The words, so similar to the ones I'd been thinking, hit me harder coming from someone else. "But he says he loves me," I said, hating how pathetic I sounded. "He's gentle and kind and—" "And that's enough for you? Scraps, midnight visits, being erased during business hours? You don't understand. His career, his family." "No," Kai interrupted, but not unkindly. "I do understand. I've been out since I was 16. I lost friends. My dad didn't speak to me for 2 years. It was hell." He paused, his eyes meeting mine. "But you know what was worse? The year I spent trying to be someone I wasn't. The year I hid. That almost destroyed me."
I wrapped my hands around my mug, seeking its warmth. You deserve someone who chooses you in the daylight, someone who introduces you to their colleagues, holds your hand at brunch, kisses you under streetlights. You deserve someone who's proud to love you. What if no one else wants to? The question came out small and broken, revealing the fear I'd been carrying for 2 years. What if Mark was the best I could hope for? What if loving in secret was better than not being loved at all? Kai reached across the table and took my hand, right there in the bright cafe with other customers around us. He didn't hide it. He didn't look around nervously. He just held my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Leo," he said softly, "you are so worthy of being loved in the light, and the fact that you don't see that breaks my heart." I started crying then, not the desperate, drowning sobs of the bathroom stall, but something quieter, something that felt like grief for the 2 years I'd wasted, and something else too, something that felt almost like relief. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't a secret. I was just a person sitting in a cafe, holding someone's hand, and it felt like coming home. Chapter 7. The knock came at 11:52 p.m. I sat on my couch, staring at the door, my heart hammering in my chest. Knock, knock, knock. "Leo, baby, open up. I know you're home." I stayed silent, my hands clenched into fists. "Leo, come on. Let me explain about tonight. It was just a stupid game. It didn't mean anything." It never meant anything. That was the problem. "Please, baby. I missed you. Don't you miss me?" I stood up and walked to the door, pressing my palm against the wood. On the other side, I could hear Mark's breathing, could picture him leaning against the frame with that expression he made, the one that used to melt my resolve. "Leo?" I closed my eyes and spoke through the door, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'm tired of being your secret, Mark. Don't come back until you're brave enough to be seen with me." Silence. Then, "What the hell is that supposed to mean? I told you I can't." "I know what you told me, and I'm telling you that I'm done. I'm done with midnight visits and dark rooms. I'm done being erased every morning like I'm something shameful. I'm done waiting for you to love me enough to choose me." "I do love you." "No," I said, and the certainty in my voice surprised me. "You love the idea of me. You love having someone waiting in the shadows, but you don't love me enough to stand in the daylight with me, and I'm finally understanding that I deserve better than that." "Is this about that new guy, Kai? Are you seriously—" "This is about me, Mark. This is about the fact that I've spent 2 years shrinking myself so small that I almost disappeared completely. This is about the fact that I'm tired of crying in bathroom stalls while you perform your heterosexuality for an audience." He could hear him breathing heavily on the other side of the door. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice tight. "You're throwing away 2 years because of one bad day?" "No, I'm saving myself because of 738 bad days." I stepped back from the door, from the man I'd loved in the dark for too long. "Goodbye, Mark. Don't come back unless something fundamentally changes. Don't come back unless you're ready to love me the way I deserve to be loved." I heard him stand there for another minute or two. Then, finally, footsteps retreating down the hall. I slid down the door and sat on the floor of my apartment, but I wasn't crying. I was breathing, really breathing for what felt like the first time in years. The apartment was quiet, but it wasn't the crushing silence of loneliness. It was the peaceful quiet of a decision made, a door closed, a new chapter beginning. I pulled out my phone and sent Kai a text. "Thank you for the chocolate and for seeing me. Would you want to get coffee sometime? In daylight?" His response came 30 seconds later. "I'd love that. You deserve to be seen, Leo. Always." I smiled in my empty apartment, and this time The smile was real. Chapter 8. The next 2 weeks changed everything. Kai and I started having lunch together. Actual, public, daylight lunches where we laughed and talked and didn't hide. He'd bring me coffee in the morning, leaving it on my desk with terrible puns written on the cups. We'd work late together sometimes, and he'd walk me to my car, his hand casually resting on my lower back. It felt revolutionary. It felt terrifying. It felt right. Mark watched it all with barely concealed rage. Friday afternoon, everyone was packing up early for the weekend. Kai helped me with my coat, his fingers brushing my shoulders as he adjusted the collar. "Dinner tonight?" he asked, his smile warm. "I'd love." "Leo." Mark's voice cut through the air like a knife. "Break room, now. We need to discuss the Anderson report." Kai's eyes narrowed. "I'm the lead on Anderson. If there's an issue, you can discuss it with both of us. This is about Leo's portion. Leo!" Mark's tone made it clear it wasn't a request. I followed him to the break room, my stomach churning. The door had barely closed before Mark was on me, backing me against the wall, his hands on either side of my head. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed. "Having lunch, drinking coffee, living my life. With him, you're parading around the office with that what, Mark? Say it." His jaw clenched. "You're trying to make me jealous. That's what this is. Not everything is about you. 2 weeks ago you loved me. Now you're acting like I don't exist, and you're all over the new guy. You think I don't see what this is?" "What this is," I said, my voice shaking but firm, "is me remembering what it feels like to be treated like I matter. What it feels like to not be someone's dirty secret." Mark's expression twisted into something ugly. "You're mine, Leo. Remember that. 2 years doesn't just disappear." His hand moved to my wrist, gripping tight enough to bruise. The door flew open. "Step back, now." Kai's voice was ice cold. Mark didn't move. "This is a private conversation." "He's not an object you can hide in a drawer when it's convenient and pull out when you're lonely. Step back." For a moment, I thought Mark might actually throw a punch, but Kai stood his ground, his body language protective but not aggressive. Finally, Mark released my wrist and stepped away, his face flushed with anger. "This isn't over," he muttered, pushing past Kai and out of the break room. I slumped against the wall, my whole body shaking. Kai was there immediately, his hands gentle on my face. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" "I'm fine. Thank you." "You don't have to thank me for basic decency, Leo." He pulled me into a hug, right there in the break room with its fluorescent lights and terrible coffee machine. His embrace was warm and solid and safe, everything Mark's had never been. "Come on," he said softly, "let's get out of here. I know a place with the best ramen in the city. And after, if you want, we could catch that movie you mentioned. The late showing, the early showing, the mid-afternoon showing, whatever you want, because I'm not afraid to be seen with you." That night, after the best ramen I'd ever had, and a movie where Kai held my hand through the entire thing, in public, in a crowded theater, he walked me to my door. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, his voice gentle. I nodded, and when his lips met mine, it wasn't desperate or apologetic or hidden. It was sweet and certain and full of promise. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "You're enough, Leo, just as you are. You don't have to shrink yourself or hide or apologize for existing. You're more than enough." I believed him. The following Monday, Kai and I arrived at work together. We didn't make a show of it, but we didn't hide either. His hand found mine in the parking garage, and we walked into the building side by side. Mark saw us. The entire office saw us. And for the first time in 2 years, I didn't look away. Chapter 9. 3 weeks later, everything came crashing down.
The Monday morning staff meeting was supposed to be routine. Quarterly updates, new project assignments, the usual corporate monotony. I sat next to Kai, our shoulders touching, comfortable in a way that felt miraculous. Mark sat across the conference table, his eyes bloodshot, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. David was mid-sentence about the Q2 projections when Mark suddenly stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor.
I need to say something. The room went silent. Mark? David looked confused. This isn't really the time. I'm gay. Mark's voice cracked as he practically screamed the words. Okay? Is everyone happy now? I'm gay. I've been gay this whole time. Shocked faces turned toward him. Someone's pen clattered to the table. I've been dating Leo for 2 years. He pointed at me, his hand shaking. 2 years! We were together, and I ruined it because I was scared, because I'm a coward. Oh, God. Oh, no. Mark, maybe you should... David started. No! Everyone needs to know! Leo, please! His eyes found mine, desperate and pleading. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll do better. I'll be brave. Just come back to me, please. I'm doing it. I'm coming out, just like you wanted. The office had gone completely silent. 30 faces stared at us, some shocked, some uncomfortable, some sympathetic. I looked at Mark, really looked at him. 2 months ago, this was all I'd wanted, for him to choose me publicly, for him to be brave. But now, watching him fall apart, making a spectacle of both of us, I felt only pity, and underneath that, something clearer, understanding. You didn't come out for love, Mark, I said quietly, standing up. You came out because you were losing control. That's not... Yes, it is. I grabbed my bag, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. For 2 years, I begged you to see me, to acknowledge me, to be brave enough to love me in the daylight. And for 2 years, you told me I was being selfish, that I was asking for too much. I moved toward the door, Kai standing with me. I deserve someone who chose me when it was hard, not just when he was desperate. I deserve someone who was brave from the beginning, who didn't need to lose me to realize I was worth being seen with. Leo, please. I hope you find peace, Mark. I really do. I hope you learn to love yourself enough to be honest. But I can't be the one to teach you that. I can't wait anymore. I looked at Kai, who met my eyes with understanding and support. I'm choosing differently now. I'm choosing myself, and I'm choosing someone who chose me first. We walked out of the conference room together, leaving behind the shocked silence, leaving behind 2 years of hiding, leaving behind the man who'd loved me only in the dark. The sun was shining when we stepped outside. Chapter 10. Are you okay? Kai asked as we sat in his car in the parking garage. I took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. Yeah, I actually am. That was intense. It was necessary. I turned to look at him. Thank you for standing with me, for showing me what it looks like when someone isn't ashamed. Kai took my hand, threading our fingers together. You know what I see when I look at you? What? Someone brave. Someone who chose himself when it would have been easier to stay small. Someone who deserves everything beautiful this world has to offer. I leaned over and kissed him, soft and unhurried in the bright fluorescent lights of the parking garage. Want to get out of here? He asked when we pulled apart. Where to? Anywhere, everywhere. Brunch? A walk in the park? We could go to that bookstore you mentioned. Or we could just drive and see where we end up. I smiled. All of the above? Perfect. We ended up at a small cafe with outdoor seating, the kind of place with mismatched furniture and plants hanging from the ceiling. Kai ordered us both breakfast, and we sat in the sunshine, his hand covering mine on the table. My parents want to meet you, he said casually, spreading jam on his toast. Really? Really? I talk about you constantly. They're convinced you're either fictional or way out of my league.
I'm definitely not out of your league." "Agree to disagree," he grinned. "But seriously, no pressure. Whenever you're ready. Next week, next month, next year. I'm not going anywhere." I realized, sitting there in the morning sunlight with this man who saw me, who chose me, who was proud to love me, that I wasn't afraid anymore. "How about next weekend?" His smile could have powered the city. "Yeah? Yeah, I want to meet the people who raised someone so kind." Later that afternoon, we walked through the park, ice cream cones dripping in the heat. Kai told me terrible jokes that made me laugh until my stomach hurt. I told him about my dreams, the ones I'd packed away because they seemed too big, too selfish. "You should write," he said when I mentioned my abandoned novel. "You should travel. You should take that photography class. You should do all the things that make you come alive." "What if I fail?" "Then you fail, but at least you'll fail while living instead of hiding." We found a bench overlooking the lake and sat there as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and think. "I need to tell you something," I said. "Okay?" "I'm still broken. From Mark, from the hiding, from all of it. Some days I'm going to wake up and feel like I'm not enough. Some days I'm going to be scared that you'll change your mind, that you'll realize I'm too much work." Kai turned to face me fully, his expression serious. "Then on those days, I'll remind you. I'll remind you that you're brilliant and brave and beautiful. I'll remind you that loving you isn't work. It's the easiest thing I've ever done. And I'll keep reminding you until you believe it yourself." Tears pricked my eyes. "I'm going to hold you to that." "Please do." As the sun set completely, we walked back to his car, our hands swinging between us. I thought about Mark, alone in the office, or maybe at home, finally confronting the truth he'd run from for so long. I hoped he found peace. I hoped he learned to be brave for himself, not just when he was desperate. But mostly I thought about the future stretching out before me. Uncertain, yes, but full of possibility, full of sunshine and honesty and love that didn't ask me to shrink. "Hey, Kai?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for finding me when I was lost." He squeezed my hand. "Thank you for being brave enough to be found." As I walked out of that office with Kai, I realized that for 2 years I had been waiting for Mark to come out of the closet. But the truth was, I was the one who needed to come out of the shadows, out of the silence, out of the belief that I deserved only the love that came with conditions. I deserved the sun, and I was finally brave enough to stand in it. The end. Thank you for listening to BL Stories by Kay. If this story touched your heart, remember, you deserve to be loved loudly, proudly, and in the full light of day. Never settle for someone who makes you feel like a secret. Until next time, take care of your heart.